So in this tutorial, we are going to talk about kingdom Plantae. So let's start with the characteristics of organisms under the kingdom Plantae. One, they are multicellular eukaryotic organisms. What we mean by multicellular, it means that they are made up of many cells, and eukaryotic means they have a true nucleus. That means their genetic material is being surrounded by a membrane. Number two, they have a cell wall made up of cellulose. Other organisms are made up of cell wall, but their cell wall is not made up of cellulose. In the case of fungi, their cell wall is made up of chitin. In the case of bacteria, their cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan. Number three, they have chlorophyll. It is this chlorophyll molecule that will absorb sunlight in order for them to perform photosynthesis. And number four, growth is unlimited. That means they can grow throughout their lifetime, not like in the case of animals that growth is limited. At certain age, they can no longer grow. And the last one is that they are autotrophic. Auto means self, troph is talking about feeding. So these organisms, they do produce their own food by themselves. That means they are able to convert inorganic substance to organic substance, which they can use as food or they can use for energy giving. And let's talk about the classification of kingdom Plantae. The kingdom Plantae is being divided into many divisions, and we are going to explain it using this diagram, and we are going to use questions in order to classify it into its various divisions. And based on the answer, we can divide them into their various division. So let's start with the first one. Do they have differentiated body parts? That means are their body part being divided into root, stem, and leaves? If not, they are referred to as talophytes. If yes, then we continue to ask another question. Are they having a specialized vascular bundles? That means are they having xylem and phloem for the transport of substances within the plant? If not, they are referred to as bryophyte. If yes, then we continue to ask another question. We have asked, are they having differentiated body parts? Yes. Are they having vascular bundle? Yes. Then let's add one more question for us to have another division. Do they produce seed? If not, they are referred to as pteridophytes. If they produce seed, then we ask another question. Are they producing seed that is being enclosed within a fruit? Or are they producing a naked seed, a seed that is not being enclosed within a fruit? So if they are producing a naked seed, then they are referred to as gymnosperms. But if they are producing seed that is being enclosed within a fruit, they are referred to as angiosperms. Then we have two classes, the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. These are superclasses. Under the superclass angiosperms, we have two classes under angiosperms. We have the class dicotyledone and we have the class monocotyledone, also referred to as the monocots. But in here as well, we have to ask question before we classify them either as dicot or monocot. We said they are producing seed that is being enclosed in a fruit. Is the seed having one cotyledon? or two cotyledon. If the seed is having one cotyledon, they are referred to as monocot, as mono means one. If the seed is producing two cotyledon, they are referred to as dicot, as di mean two. Then after the classification, let's talk about this division one after the other. And don't forget, we have four divisions under the kingdom Plantae. We have division Talophyta, we have division Bryophyta, we have division Pteridophyta, and we have division Spermatophyta. The organisms are what we call the talophyte, the bryophyte, the pteridophyte, and the spermatophyte. When they ask you about their division, you call them as talophyta, bryophyta, pteridophyta, spermatophyta. Who are they fighting is not my concern. So let's go to the next one. So on our next slide here, we are going to start to talk about the first division, that is the division Talophyta. Let's talk about the characteristics of these organisms under the division Talophyta. One, they are the most primitive and the most simple plant of them all. Two, their body part is not differentiated into stem, root, and leaves, but it is in the form of an undivided thallus. So their body is just grouped as a whole. This thallus is an undifferentiated body. Number three, most of them are aquatic. That means they live in water. It can be in marine or fresh water. And some are terrestrial. That means they live on land or near moist places. They usually contain green pigment, which we call chlorophyll, that is responsible for green coloration of leaves. And that chlorophyll is responsible for photosynthesis. And the last one, they are autotrophic. That means they can produce their own food just like any other plant. So example we have here, they are the algae, the lichen, and the fungi. Although fungi is having its own kingdom fungi, but this kingdom fungi, as we say, they have plant-like and animal-like characteristics. So they can also be placed here under the division Talophyta in the kingdom Plantae. So we are going to talk about one typical example of an organism under the division Talophyta. We are going to talk about Spirogyra, that is an algae. So let's talk about the Spirogyra in detail. So this Spirogyra, it is a multicellular. That means it is made up of many cells. Filamentous, that means they are joined together. Green algae, and most often they are found in stagnant or slow moving water. When we talk about stagnant water, it is the water that is not moving, or they can be found in what slow moving fresh water, not marine. And number two, it consists of unbranched filament. The filaments are not branched, they are straight. And they have spiral chloroplast. That means the chloroplast is in a spiral form like this here. That is how their chloroplast is being arranged. And the last one here, they can reproduce by fragmentation. That means they can divide into many pieces, and each of these pieces or each of these fragments can give rise to a whole adult spirogyra. And conjugation. So fragmentation, it is the asexual form of reproduction in Spirogyra, while conjugation, it is the sexual form of reproduction in Spirogyra. We are going to talk about the conjugation in detail, but the fragmentation is easy. When they want to undergo fragmentation, since they are fragments, what happens? When they want to undergo fragmentation, they can just divide into fragments, that means into pieces, and each of these fragments can give rise to a whole adult spirogyra. But the conjugation is a complex process, so we have to talk about it in the coming slide. But before we talk about conjugation, let's talk about adaptation of spirogyra. What are the various adaptations that this spirogyra does in order to survive in its environment? One, the filaments are light-weighted, which enable them to stay at the surface of water for efficient photosynthesis. These spirogyra, they have to undergo photosynthesis in order to produce their own food. So in that process, they need light. For them to have efficient light, they need to stay on top of the water. If they are under the water, it will reduce on the intensity of light that will reach them, because as we go deeper into the water, the intensity of the light reduces. Next is that they have spiral chloroplast, which increases the surface area for photosynthesis. Just like I said, the chloroplast is in a spiral form. This increases the surface area for efficient photosynthesis. As you can observe, the chloroplast is in this form here, this spiral form, which increases the surface area for photosynthesis. You can observe here on the far end of the screen where we have the diagram of a spirogyra. You can see the chloroplast here, and this chloroplast here is in the form of a spiral shape. Just observe it here as I'm drawing it. Next, they have thread-like structure, and that thread-like structure, it enables it to entangle around an object to avoid being carried away by water. Since they are light, they can be easily be carried away by water. So they are in that thread-like form. Whenever they come in contact with an object, they can entangle around that object in order not to be carried away by the water movement. And they have mucilage. This mucilage coating prevent them from desiccation. That means it prevents them from drying up. These spirogyra, they are having three layers. The first layer is what we call the mucilage. After the mucilage, we have the cell wall. After the cell wall, we have the cell membrane. And the function of the cell wall and the cell membrane is just the same as we have discussed in our previous tutorials. The nucleus just the same as we have discussed in previous tutorials, that it contains the genetic material. We have the cytoplasmic strand that provides support, and we have the paranoid granule that helps to store starch. We have the vacuole for osmoregulation. We have the cytoplasm that act as a site of all chemical reaction. The cell wall, cell membrane, they are there for protection. And we need to also know that the cell wall is freely permeable, while the cell membrane, it is selectively permeable, just like we have been discussing before. So you can pause and learn how to label this spirogyra cell correctly before you move to the other slide coming, or you can come back later and learn how to label it. And lastly, it has cell wall which provides support and protection, just like I said. So now let's talk about the conjugation in spirogyra, which is the sexual mode of reproduction in spirogyra. So when spirogyra want to undergo conjugation, the two filaments will come and lie side by side. The filament that has to transfer the gamete, it is being referred to as the male filament, and the filament that has to receive the gamete, it is being referred to as the female filament. So this male and the female filament will come and lie side by side. When they lie side by side, there will be a protrusion. So they will form a protrusion towards each other as we have it here. Here is a protrusion that they have started to form, and this protrusion will form what we call the conjugation tube. It is through the conjugation tube that the cytoplasmic content of the male filament will move into the female filament. Just like we have in 3 here, that the conjugation canal, also called the conjugation tube, will be formed. When this conjugation tube is being formed, the protoplast or the cytoplasmic content of the male filament will move into the female filament. Just like we have it here in step 4, you can see all of these contents here, they have moved into the female filament. When this content moves into the female filament, the male gamete fuses with the female gamete to form the zygote. But it is the nucleus of the male filament that will fuse with the nucleus of the female filament in order to form the zygote. Mind you, the nucleus of the male is haploid, the nucleus of the female is haploid. When they combine together, they form a diploid zygote. After the zygote has formed, the filament will disintegrate, and this zygote here will develop a thick wall in order to form what we call the zygospore. The zygospore is adapted to survive unfavorable environmental conditions. When the environmental conditions are favorable, the zygospores can germinate into a young spirogyra. Next on our slide is the division bryophyta. The bryophyta, it came from two words, bryon and phyton. The bryon means moss, phyton means plant. So let's talk about characteristics of organisms under the division bryophyta. 1. They are non-vascular plants. That means they do not have xylem and phloem for the transport of substances within the plant. The xylem transport water, while the phloem transport manufactured food. Number 2, they have no true root, stem or leaves, but have rhizoid for anchorage. The slide that we discussed under the division, it was misleading actually, but I got that one from the internet and I was unable to edit it. But the bryophyte, they have no true roots, stems or leaves, but they have rhizoid for anchorage. Number 3 is that they depend on water for fertilization. The male gamete, called antheridion, it depends on water for it to move to the female gamete, called archegonium. Number 4, they have dominant gametophyte generation. That means the gametophyte, it is the most prominent and it is the long-lived generation. Because we have two generations, we have the gametophyte generation and we have the sporophyte generation. These bryophytes, they undergo what we call alternation of generation. They alternate between the gametophyte generation and the sporophyte generation. And number 5, they reproduce by spores. They do not produce seed. Therefore, these organisms here, they reproduce by spores. And 6, they are mostly found in moist or shady habitats. These organisms here, they are referred to as the amphibians of plants. That means they can live on land and in water as well. Amphi means both. That means they can live both on land and in water. So on this slide here, This is a typical example of a bryophyte, which we call the moss plant. As I said, bryophyte, it came from two words. Bryon means moss, phyton means plant. So let's talk about the diagram of a moss plant. In here, you have to pause, learn how to label this moss plant, because I know if you know how to label this moss plant, you'll be able to identify it. That's why I'm not focusing on it, for you to be able to identify it. Immediately you know how to label it, how to identify it will be easier. This moss plant is having two main parts. We have the sporophyte and we have the gametophyte. The sporophyte, it is the one having the capsule that bears the spores, and we have the cyst that helps to hold the capsule upright so that the spores can be dispersed efficiently by wind. And we have the leaves that are there for photosynthesis. We have this rhizoid that is there for anchorage. Let's briefly talk about the life cycle of mosses. The mosses, they have two generations. They have the sporophyte generation and they have the gametophyte generation. So let's start with the gametophyte generation. So in here we have the gametophyte. This gametophyte is having the archegonia head and it is having the antheridia head. The archegonia head, it gives rise to the female gamete, while the antheridia head, it gives rise to the male gamete. The male gamete and the female gamete will fuse to form what we call the zygote. The zygote, it is diploid, but the gametes are haploid. These zygotes will develop into sporophytes. The sporophyte as well, it is diploid. This sporophyte will produce what we call the spores by meiosis. These spores, they are haploid. The spores will give rise to the gametophyte. So in here you can see we have here N. This N here represent haploid. It represents one set of chromosome. These two N here represent diploid. It represents two sets of chromosome. Therefore, the spores, the gametophyte, the gamete, they are haploid. They have one set of chromosome. The sporophyte, the zygote, they are diploid. They have two sets of chromosome. Next on our slide is another division pteridophyta. So let's talk about characteristics of pteridophyte organisms under the division pteridophyta. One is that they have vascular tissue. They are the first division here that have developed this vascular tissue. The division Pteridophyta, they were not having. Bryophyta, they were not having. We see vascular bundle first in the division Pteridophyta. As I said, the vascular bundle, it consists of the xylem and the phloem. And next, the sporophyte is dominant. That means the sporophyte, it is the most prominent one, the one that you can see from a distance, and it is the one that live long more than the other generation. That is the gametophyte generation. Also, they reproduce by spores. They do not reproduce by seed because they are not producing seed. They produce what we call spores. And they have true roots, stems, and leaves. They are the first division since we started this tutorial that they have true root, stems, and leaves. The division Pteridophyta and Bryophyta, they were not having true root, stems, and leaves. It is the pteridophyte that they are having two roots, stems, and leaves. It is the pteridophyte, since we started this tutorial, that they are having vascular bundles. That means they are having xylem and phloem. But just like bryophyte, they also required water for fertilization. The antheridion, that is the male gamete, it has to swim to the archegonium, that is the female gamete. They required water for that process, and they exhibit alternation of generation. All the plants, they exhibit alternation of generations. That means they exhibit alternation of generations between the sporophyte and gametophyte generation. So on this slide, we have the fan plant, that is a typical example of an organism under the division Pteridophyta. So let's talk about the diagram of a fan plant. So the fan plant, the part that you see above the ground, it is called the frond. And the part where we have the leaf, collectively they are called the blade. The stalk within the blade, it is called axis or rachis. The axis or rachis, it is the stalk within the blade. And the stalk below the blade, that means where we do not have the leaf, it is called stipe. And the leaf or the leaflet, they are called the pinnae. This pinnae is subdivided into another leaflet, which we call the sub-leaflet. This sub-leaflet, they are called pinnules. And we have this young one here that is growing by the side. It is called the fiddle head. Now let's talk about reproduction in a pteridophyte. So in here we are going to talk about the life cycle of a fan plant as an example of a pteridophyte. So just like how we started it in most plants, we are going to start it here the same way. So we are going to start with the gametophyte. This young gametophyte will develop into a matured gametophyte. This matured gametophyte will give rise to the archegonium with egg and antheridion with sperm. So the egg and the sperm will fuse together in order to form the zygote through the process we call fertilization. Fertilization is the fission of the nucleus of the male gamete and the nucleus of the female gamete in order to form a zygote. So this zygote will develop into sporophyte. The matured sporophyte, it is having what we call sorus on the under surface of the leaf. It is in this sorus that the spores are being produced, and the spores give rise to the gametophyte. The spores, the gametophyte, archegonium with egg and antheridion with sperm, they are haploid cells. That means they have one set of chromosome. But the zygote and the sporophyte, they are diploid cell. That means they have two sets of chromosome. And the last division that we are going to talk about it, that is the division spermatophyta. So let's talk about characteristics of organisms under the division spermatophyta. One, they reproduce by seed. As we started this tutorial, they are the only division that produce seed. And number two, they have vascular system present. That means they have xylem for transport of water and phloem for transport of manufactured food. The xylem transports water from the root to other parts of the plant, while the phloem transports manufactured food from the leaf to other parts of the plant. and they have true root, stem, and leaves. They exhibit alternation of generations just like any other plant, but in here the sporophyte is the dominant generation. That means it is the most prominent one and the most long-lived one among the two. And some of them have flowers, or some they have combs for reproduction. Those that have flowers, they are referred to as angiosperm, and those that have combs, they are referred to as gymnosperm. So those that reproduce by flowers, they are angiosperm. Those that reproduce by combs, they are gymnosperm. Now let's talk about division spermatophyta. So this spermatophyta is also divided into two major groups. It is divided into the gymnospermy. The organisms here are called gymnosperms, and the angiospermy. The organisms here are called the angiosperms. The gymnosperms, they produce naked seed that is not being enclosed in a fruit, while the angiosperm, they produce seed that is being enclosed within a fruit. The angiosperm are further divided into two major groups, the monocot and dicot. This angiosperm, it is divided into two classes. We have the class Monocotyledonae and we have the class Dicotyledonae. Let's talk about the differences between monocot and dicot. Mono means one, di means two. So the monocot, it has one cotyledon, while the dicot, it has two cotyledon. In terms of venation, the monocot is having parallel venation, while the dicot is having net-like venation. Venation is talking about the arrangement of the vein within the leaf. And in terms of arrangement of the vascular bundle within the stem, in monocot, the vascular bundles are usually complex, but in dicot, the vascular bundles are usually arranged in a ring-like form. And in the case of the root system, in monocot, they have a fibrous root system, but in dicot, they have a tap root system. And in terms of the number of their floral parts, mostly the petal and the sepal, the floral parts here, they are usually arranged in a multiple of three. That means the floral parts can be three, can be six, can be nine, can be 12 in a multiple of three. But the floral parts in dicot, usually they are in a multiples of four or five. If they are in a multiple of four, it can be 4, 8, 12, 16, as the case may be. If they are in a multiple of 5, it can be 5, 10, 15, 20, as the case may be. On this slide here, we have a summary of all what we have been explaining before, or what we have been learning before. On this side here, we have the features, and here we have the division. Now let's start with the first one, the dominant phase. Among all of them, it is only in bryophyta that the gametophyte, it is the dominant generation. And in terms of the ploidy of main body parts, you know the gametophyte is haploid, while the sporophyte is diploid. So in terms of ploidy of main body parts in bryophyte, the gametophyte, just like I said, it is haploid. That means in terms of ploidy as well, it is only gametophyte that is having its main body part that is haploid, but the rest, they are diploid, 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 diploid. In terms of differentiation of body parts, The bryophyte, it is having thallus and rhizoid, and the rest they are having root, stem and leaves. As you can see, we have it in pteridophyta, root, stem and leaves. We have it in the gymnosperms, root, stem and leaves. We have it in angiosperm, root, stem and leaves. You have to pay attention very well to this table, because from here you can make a sentence to give characteristics of any of these divisions that we are learning. But in terms of the vascular bundles they are absent in bryophyta, but they are present in pteridophyta and they are present in spermatophyta. In here, they differentiate the spermatophyta to be the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. But the gymnosperms and the angiosperms collectively they form the division spermatophyta. And when we talk about the nature of spores, is the spores the same or they are different? If they are the same, we call them homospores. But if the spores are different, we call them heterospores. So the bryophyta is having homospores. The pteridophyta is having homospores and heterospores. But the spermatophyta, that is the gymnosperms and the angiosperm, they are having heterospores. So heterospores here, heterospores here. And in the case of seed and its covering, whether they are having seed and if that seed is being covered or not. So in here in bryophyta, seed is being absent. And in the case of pteridophyta as well here, seed is being absent. But in the case of the gymnosperms, they have seed, but the seed is being naked. That means it is without covering. And in the case of the angiosperms here, the seed are with a covering. That means the seed is enclosed within a fruit. And whether they have flower or not, flower is a reproductive organ of a flowering plant. So these bryophyta, they are not having flower. The pteridophyta, they are not having flower. And lastly, the angiosperms, flower is present in them. As we said, the reproductive organ of angiosperms, it is a flower. So it is that flower that they use for reproduction.